We've got Shayne Graham from the road. I don't even know where you are, Shayne. Maybe you don't want to give up your location. You are dealing with somebody that wasn't always allowed to tell his location, so I'm not trying to get any intel out of you, but I'm not sure where you are in the world right now.
I am actually in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've had a decent amount of travel down there. I assume you're training the next best young kicker in the league here, the next generation of kickers.
Well, I can't disclose all of my business contacts because there has been they do not want me to disclose working with me because they don't want to breach other people that they work with and step on their toes. So I'll have to be very careful about who I mention with that, if that makes sense.
No problem. Yeah, I figured as much. I know you've been down there, but it's a good thing that you're training whoever it is. They made a good choice, so we won't belabor that one too much. But no, excited to get you on for a little bit and just chat about some things for the week here. We were kind of talking about the off season a little bit, and it occurred to me because I wanted to do this from week to week with us on the show. I was curious kind of how you were so prepared as a player, and I was curious how you went about the off season. Obviously there were different off seasons for you. It depended on kind of your status with the team that you were on currently, and maybe you were bouncing around a little bit, but I'm curious how you go about the off season and maybe how some of your colleagues went about the off season, because we cover it so much from the perspective of, okay, what's the next thing from a fan and team building perspective? It's you gotta be ready for the draft and free agency, and we're restructuring players and doing the contract stuff. But as a player, obviously you weren't worried about much beyond your own contract and the contracts of your buddies, so you were focused on recovery, I imagine. And then I'm curious kind of how that timeline worked for you once you actually got into the off season.
So everyone has to have a plan, right? Like when you create structure, that's the only way to truly create success. And when certain people want to have a structure or a plan moving forward, I think that recovery is obviously the first thing for an athlete, but then you have to have, how do you start building back your foundation of your technique, your fundamentals, all of those things. Then you have to start building endurance, and then you have to start building how does it work into team scheme and schematic? How does all of it start working together? And then how are you prepared for whatever opportunity you have, whether you get traded, whether you get sent to a new team, or you're doing the same thing for the team that you're on? You have to make sure that like you're prepared for whatever it may be.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's kind of like my friends that are teachers. I feel like a lot of people that aren't teachers kind of unfairly say, "Oh, well, you get a 3-month break in the summertime," and that's really not true for anybody that is a teacher, knows teachers well. You've got to carry over, kind of close up the previous season, the previous year, and then start early on the next season. So it only ends up being 4 to 6 weeks. You've got to take continuing education. I imagine it's kind of like that, because even though it's called the off season, you're obviously working very hard to make sure your body is good and ready, both from the recovery standpoint, because that is important, but then making sure that you're training the proper amount so that you're not coming into camp and you're behind your potential competition, if there is another kicker in your case, or whoever else you're competing with, when you've got the expanded numbers that camp brings.
I mean, so when you're trying to like build the structure for your off season as a player, you try not to get involved in the draft process or the free agency process because when it doesn't do you any good to really get involved with that because you can't control it. It's outside of your control, right? So all you can do is be the best version of yourself. So when you end up being that person that may or may not be a free agent that's getting signed by another team, whether you're a restricted free agent or a regular free agent, like you have to make sure that you don't get so caught up in that. And then when you get the offers, you can work with those offers.
Oh yeah, I imagine that's got to be kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing, because it doesn't necessarily help you. I mean, that's why you have agents and different things. It doesn't necessarily help you to be thinking about that part of things too prematurely, because you've got to play your way. You got to control the controllables. You got to play your way into that contract and say, okay, yeah, I'm doing all I can on and off the field to make sure I'm prepared, and that other stuff will come because I'm not a decision maker on that. I just have to deal with the offers as they come in.
Yes. And when those offers come in, the only way that they can come in is if you're the best version of yourself. And if you're not the best version of yourself, those offers are going to be, honestly, quote unquote market value. But your market value is what you have done for your own resume. And one statement that you always hear like head coaches and general managers and people say is that like your body is your race car. So you treat your body like your race car. So you fuel it, you take care of it, you maintain it. But then when you are like the when you are the catalyst for what it is that you give as your product, you have to make sure that you are the top version. That's mental, that's physical, that's every level that you can create for yourself. You have to make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance to be all of those things. And understanding what is the best process for that. And if all you're worried about is some 21, 22-year-old freshman out of college or senior out of college coming out, and well, hell, with COVID and transfer portal rules and all that, guys are playing into their mid-20s and late 20s now. So I guess it's a little different. But you have to make sure that you're your best version, because if you become a salary cap issue, because if you're making $2 million and they can give somebody $500,000, that's a huge discount when you think about they can pay 20 guys $500,000 instead of 20 guys $2 million, if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely. And we're going to be covering that more, especially next week, because we've got a contract expert coming on to talk about kind of some of the nitty gritty on those kinds of things. And we've also been dabbling with some of the modeling that these different services use. I've been in touch with a company called Stick to the Model, which is an interesting one. They're able to, you can basically go through the entire offseason kind of as the general manager and get into the restructuring of contracts and all that stuff. So it kind of shows what you have to go through, but that's why I wanted to cover it somewhat on the player side here.